Hi, I'm Leslie Maddox, an engineer turned homeschool mom to our 3 active little boys. And today I'll be sharing with you how we use All About Spelling in our homeschool. First, I'll go over how I set up our supplies, and then we'll go into the day-by-day of using All About Spelling. This year I have 2 students using All About Spelling. My 4th grader is in level 4, and my 1st grader is in level 1. As you can see, I keep the teacher's manuals in a binder. I have levels 1 and 4 in here. I went to a copy store and had them cut off the spine, as you can see, for the book, and just hole punched them and put them in here. Separated them with this pocket in order to keep some of the extra supplies that go with it. In the past, I've kept in here, as you can see, some of the tiles that they provide, and in the past I kept in here extra letter tiles that we weren't using yet, but now I use the All About Spelling app and we don't use those as much, but I do keep my highlighter here and a pencil. Supplemental resources that All About Spelling provides I keep in these pockets, and they share with you, they tell you in each lesson what you're going to need if you're going to need to review a word list or spelling strategies or homophones. So I keep all that here so that I can get to it quickly. In level 4, you also dictate sentences each step or each lesson. So I create a document for myself with all of the sentences that I'll be dictating over the year. I find it easier to have it in one document than in the separate steps, because I jump around a lot in what sentences I'm dictating. For level 1, I'll be dictating phrases, and we get to sentences near the end. So I just have the phrase dictation in there for my 1st grader. Each of my boys also has a spelling box. Now the box is separate, but the cards come with All About Spelling with the student kit. I got a separate box for each of my boys just to keep things simple. With a label maker, I just put their names on it so we don't get them confused. Inside you'll see the dividers and cards for phonogram cards, sound cards, key cards, and word cards. And each of those types of cards has a review, a mastered, and a future lessons divider. I also have cards in here from from level 3, the previous level, because sometimes I find that he hasn't mastered a word from a previous level, so I grab that card and put it behind the review tab here. I also will create my own cards if I come across a word that isn't on one of these cards but that he needs some practice on, and then I also include those in the review tab here, and when he's mastered them I just put them in the back. Now that I've shared with you how I organize our supplies, let's go over how we use All About Spelling weekly. Each lesson in All About Spelling is called a step, and for each step we spend about a week on it, 4 or 5 days. Each step begins with review. We review the cards behind the review dividers in the spelling box. I determine if my student has mastered any of those cards and move them to the mastered section of the spelling box. Besides the review cards, the manual also suggests reviewing other spelling techniques at that time, and so we go through that as well. After reviewing our cards and spelling techniques, we jump into sentence dictation, and we'll spend a few minutes doing that. Depending on how much time we spent reviewing, I'll dictate about 5 or 6 sentences to my son. For sentence dictation and word review, I usually have my son write his words and sentences on a boogie board just to make it more fun. Just right here, and push a button and it erases everything. Sometimes I also have him write up on the whiteboard. We have a pretty large whiteboard in our schoolroom, and I find it's useful for him to write his sentences and words up there if he has the wiggles. He's a pretty active kid, and sometimes if he's just sitting in his chair, he's moving around and fidgeting and generally just not paying attention. But if I have him stand at the board and write his words in sentences, that tends to help a lot. He focuses a lot better on what he's doing. I introduced new teaching on day 2. That's usually a new spelling technique or a new spelling rule. During new teaching, usually the kids are using letter tiles to spell out the words in order to practice their spelling techniques and rules. We used to use a magnetic whiteboard and the tiles that they provide, but this past year I've switched to the All About Spelling app, and that's been really nice. In our last schoolroom, we had a lot of room for the whiteboard, and in this schoolroom, it's just never been comfortable using it. We've had to put it on the floor, and it takes up a lot of space, and people have to kind of walk around it. So I've liked using the app, and I find that the app is really nice. After we've gone over the new things we're learning, I will do more sentence dictation. And again, depending on how much time we've spent on the new teaching, I'll do five or six sentences. The next few days are about practicing the new things he's learned, as well as reviewing previously taught spelling rules. If he has a new word list in the current step that he's on, he reviews those words using Spelling City. Before the school year begins, I go into Spelling City and create all of my word lists for the entire year. I'll then assign that word list along with some of the games provided in Spelling City for him to practice his words. But he also needs to practice the words in the review tabs of his spelling box. So what I've done there is I've created a binder of spelling practice worksheets. I did this a little bit differently last year. Last year, pretty much every day, I went in to a folder with a bunch of worksheets, and I pulled one out and put it into his drawer along with some spelling words, and he used that. That got to be a bit of a pain, so this year I decided I wanted to have all that stuff done ahead of time. So I created this binder, and before I show you the binder, can we just take a moment to admire this binder cover? I really went crazy on labeling and binder covers this year. I'll put in the description box below the seller on Teachers Pay Teachers that sells these covers. I think they're super cute. My first grader also has a spelling practice workbook, and he's got a different little boy on it with a big smile like he has. And I just think they're super cute. It's something that adds a little bit of just fun and whimsy, I feel, to the schoolroom. Now looking inside the spelling binder, you see a bunch of cute little worksheets, most of which I purchased on Teachers Pay Teachers. You can see I wrote at the bottom what step he'll be using that worksheet on. I got real specific this time around just to make my day-to-day prep for the next day easier. To use these worksheets, I pull cards from behind the review tab of his spelling box, and these are words from a previous step, not the current word list that he's working on, but from previous word lists. And usually I get about 10 of them. If he has that many behind the review tab, I just put a little clip on them and I put them in with his binder. And he knows that these are the words that he's going to use for the worksheet. Some of the worksheets I pulled from a sight word book. So you can see here, this is obviously from a published book. I bought this sight word practice book a couple of years ago and really didn't use it a lot. All About Spelling doesn't approach sight words the way that other spelling programs do. They cover words that are traditionally taught as sight words when a spelling rule is being addressed. So if it's included in a spelling rule, or if it's considered to be a rule breaker of a particular spelling rule. So I went through that book, and since I was creating the spelling binder, I went through that book and tore out pages and put worksheets where they belong in here, depending on what. So like this word will be covered in step 9, so I put this with step 9. And there were also a lot of words there that will be used that my first grader will be covering in level 1, so those pages are in his spelling binder. I started using this method of reviewing words last year. It really helped a lot, and my son gets very frustrated when practicing his spelling words. He's not a natural speller, my oldest. He's just not a natural speller. And it became really painful to go over the review words. It was the worst part of our days. He would get very frustrated, and it felt like he was getting frustrated with me, and it just did not create a lot of peace and harmony in our home. And so this year I thought I need to, last year I felt I needed to kind of pull back from that somehow. And so that's why we started using Spelling City and then Worksheets. And that helped a lot. I felt that my oldest really turned a corner last year as far as his spelling goes. I don't know if it was just he reached critical mass of knowledge and now can spell pretty well, or if it was using all these things, but I think part of the reason is that he was interacting with the words in a different way than just me saying the word and him writing it down. So this has been really nice. Also, my first grader, he really likes worksheets, so I'm excited for him to get a chance to start using his worksheets, going through his spelling binder. He's not there yet, and so I think he's really going to like it a lot. On our review days, besides using Spelling City and spelling worksheets, I also dictate sentences, except for the days when he has writing station. Now, level 4 of All About Spelling has something they call writing stations, where you give them a list of words and they spell those words, and then they have to create their own sentences. And so on those days we don't do sentence dictation because he's already doing sentences. For level 1, we'll do something similar to level 4. For day 1 of each step, we'll do review of cards in our review tabs, behind the review tabs, and also whatever spelling technique they have you review for that step. Day 2, we'll do new teaching and learning a current word list, a new word list. And then days 3 and 4, we'll use spelling worksheets to practice the words that he's learned, as well as phrase dictation. Level 1 starts off with phrase dictation. At the end, they get to sentence dictation. So we'll do phrase or sentence dictation, whichever applies. That's how we're using All About Spelling in our homeschool. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to try to answer them if I can. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and to be notified of future videos. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.